What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to subtract decimals, all right? And it's not too difficult. It's basically like just normal subtraction. The only difference is that we have a decimal here that we have to keep track of, all right? So let's start with this first example. 5.4 minus 3.7. So in order to subtract these two numbers, first thing you have to do is rewrite these by stacking them on top of each other, okay? And you have to make sure, this is the key, that their decimals are lined up. And also their place values have to be lined up, right? So if I'm going to rewrite this, this is how I would do it. I would do, so 5.4, okay, so let's write that down, 5.4, and then we're subtracting 3.7. So I'll write 3.7 right here, like that. Okay, so now you can see everything is lined up, right? So my decimals are lined up. My ones place is lined up, right? This is the ones place, this is the ones place. This is the tens place, this is the tens place, right? So everything is lined up perfectly. So now that we have everything lined up, now we can subtract these two, just like normal. So in this first column, we have 4 minus 7, right? But we can't do that, right? Because the top number has to be bigger than the bottom number. So that means I have to borrow from this number next to it. So I'm going to cross that out and turn it into a 4, and then I'll bring my 1 over. So now I have 14 minus 7. Well, that's just 7, right? And then here we have 4 minus 3, which is just 1. And again, very important, don't forget your decimal. We have our decimal here, it's right here, so you just bring it straight down to right there. So your answer here would be 1.7. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too bad, right? So now let's go on to this next example. So here we have 7.4 minus 2.51. So again, I'm going to write them vertically. Okay, I'm going to stack them on top of each other. And I need to make sure that their decimals are lined up. So I'm going to write it as 7.4 and then 2.5. I'm going to write it right there. Okay, so you can see the decimals are lined up, right? And everything else is lined up too, right? The ones, the tenths, the tenths. And as you can see, we have a 1 here in the hundredths, but we don't have anything up here in the hundredths, right? So whenever you're subtracting, right, we're subtracting decimals, you have to make sure that you fill in the blanks, okay? So again, we have a tenth here, we have a tenth here, right? We have a hundredth here, but we don't have anything in the hundredths there. So in order to fill in that blank, we're going to put a 0. Because we have to make sure we have the same amount of decimal places in each number. Okay, so if I have 2 decimal places down here, I need to have 2 decimal places up here also. All right, so now that everything is lined up and filled in properly, now we can just subtract these like normal. So starting on the right, we have 0 minus 1. Now we can't do that, right, because the top number has to be bigger than the bottom number. So I'm going to come over to the 4 right here. And I'm going to borrow 1. So that's going to turn into a 3. I'm going to borrow 1 right there. Okay. So now I have 10 minus 1, which is 9. And then here I have 3 minus 5. And again, I can't do that because the bottom number is bigger. So I have to borrow from this 7 right here. So that's going to turn into a 6. And I'll borrow 1 right there. Okay. So now here I have 13 minus 5. And 13 minus 5 is 8. All right. And then in this last column, we have 6 minus 2, which is just 4. All right. Lastly, the most important thing to remember is your decimal. Okay. So our decimal is right here. So you just bring it straight down to right there. So your answer here would be 4.89. All right. Let's do one more example. And this one has a whole number in it. So we're going to do 20 minus 14.65. So I'm going to write 20, okay? And as you can see, 20 doesn't have a decimal in it, right? But in case you didn't know, you can write any whole number as a decimal number by simply putting a decimal at the end of it. And then all you have to do is add a 0 at the end. Or you can add 2 zeros, or 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. You can add as many zeros as you want, okay? In this case, I'm going to add 2 zeros. Why am I adding 2 zeros? Well, when I bring down the 14.65, let me write that down here, 14.65, you can notice that I have 2 decimal places right here, right? So that means I need 2 decimal places up here also, okay? So we have 2 down here, and now we have 2 up there. Okay, also you can see our decimals are lined up. So everything's lined up, everything's filled in. We can now subtract these numbers. Okay, so let's start on the far right. So we have 0 minus 5. So we can't do that, right? Because we need the top number to be bigger than the bottom number. So I need to borrow. I can't borrow from 0 though, because that's nothing. I can't borrow from 0 here either, because that's nothing. So I have to come all the way over here to borrow from the 2. So that's going to turn into a 1, and then it's just going to go down the line. So I'm going to put the 1 right there, okay? But now I have to borrow from this 10 right here. So the 10 is going to turn into a 9, okay? So we'll put a 1 right there. So then this turned into 10, but again, I have to borrow from this one. So this one's going to turn into a 9 also. And then this one's going to turn into a 10, okay? So now we have 10 minus 5. What does that equal to? 5, right? And then in this next column, we have 9 minus 6, which is 3. Then in this next one, we have 9 minus 4, which is 5. And then in the last one, we have 1 minus 1, which is just 0, okay? And then don't forget your decimal place. So your decimal's right here, so you're just going to bring it straight down. So your answer here would be 5.35. All right, guys, so that's how you subtract decimals. I hope the video was helpful. If it was, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you still have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to try and help you out. There's also a playlist at the end of the video, so if there's any other topics you need to check out, definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.